NCAA Division I is one of the highest levels of track and field competition, and the World Championship event is proof of it. On the men's and women's sides, nearly 100 active D1 athletes competed against the world's best, and that was just a couple of months after their college season ended. The Lady Longhorns of Texas were so dominant in 2023, they could have held their own on the World Championship scoring table, all by themselves. And if you ask athletes like Matthew Boland, it is clear that D1 track stars have what it takes to win a World Championship gold medal, even before they turn pro. Everything that I just said is entirely true, but that's only telling half the story, because Division I track and field is not exactly what you think it is, and I'm sure you probably believe so many lies about it that whatever I'm about to say is likely going to be hard for you to hear. So please forgive me, because I'm apologizing in advance for anything that I might say going forward, because I don't know how to be anything less than honest about what's really going on out there. And if you are a track and field recruit who wants to go D1, knowing the truth about it is the only way for you to actually get there. First things first, there's nothing wrong with the recruit wanting to go D1. In fact, that's the same type of recruit that I was. In my mind, it was Division I or bust, and the reason why I wanted to do it so badly is likely the same reason why you want to. It's because I heard that that's where most of the scholarship dollars are. But now, years after my college running and college coaching career, I help athletes get recruited for college in the first place. And in reality, the only college track teams that you probably know about are the same ones that get on television. The few times that track and field ever gets on cable to begin with. Schools like Texas, Florida, LSU, and Oregon. But in order to go D1, first you have to be talented enough to do it. And even if you do, it never occurs to anyone that it might not be at all how you thought it would be. So I'ma keep it 100% of real with you. Division I is flat out not what you think it is athletically. Thanks to ESPN Plus, you can now watch almost any Division I conference compete, at least for their conference championship. But on cable TV, the only conferences you will ever see are the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and of course, the SEC. That is because each conference has a national TV network to broadcast the meet. The best schools in those conferences dominate college track recruiting all around the world to make sure they have the best athletes to put on their team. Of all the men and women who've won the Bowerman Award since 2009, for the record, it's track and field version of the Heisman, only Cam Levins from Southern Utah was not from a school in one of those four conferences. To clarify, there are about 30 conferences in all of Division I track and field. And if you still need more perspective, just consider that Abby Steiner, Christian Coleman, Athing Mo, Sha'Carri Richardson, and Grant Holloway were all track and field athletes for schools in the SEC conference. Every single one of them is a gold medalist at the World Championships. That's why I call the SEC the most well-funded professional sports league disguised as college athletics. Schools like High Point, Samford, and Prairie View A&M are all programs that take track and field very seriously. Seriously enough to win conference championships in 2023. But you wouldn't know that if you only pay attention to the teams that you see on cable. The talent gap is legit, because in the SEC conference, in the men's 100-meter dash, you likely gotta run 10.1 seconds or faster just to make the 100 final. But in the NEC conference, which is actually a thing and also in D1, you only have to run faster than 10.8 seconds to give yourself a chance. Keep in mind, the fastest man in the conference only ran 10.47 seconds. He wouldn't even make the top 20 if he were in the SEC. And if I'm gonna keep being honest, about half of all the athletes who compete in D1 could be swapped out with someone else from Division II, NAIA, or even Division III, and nobody would notice. What I'm trying to tell you is there is legitimate overlap between D1 and all the other conferences. Remember, the NCAA D3 champion ran 10.13 seconds in the 100-meter dash. He could easily win a conference championship somewhere else in Division I. So do not assume that simply going D1 means you will be competing against the best, because that's not telling the whole truth. And what most college coaches don't want you to know is most track teams across all divisions compete with each other at many of the regular season meets anyway. So whether or not you are D1, you can show up to a meet like the Texas Relays and see teams in other divisions, including junior college. They could very well end up in your heat, and they might even beat you. So the idea that you have to go D1 to compete against the best is a lie, no matter how you look at it. And on top of all that, D1 is not what you think it is financially, because some schools in D1 have way more money than others to spend on track and field, and it's not even close. The University of Oregon has a track and field stadium that is so state-of-the-art, they hosted the World Championship event in 2022. But the Penn Relays are running a football stadium with a track that runs around the perimeter. And let me tell you, that track ain't nothing special. But if you keep on traveling down to the other side of D1, there are some schools that don't even have their own track, either indoors or outdoors, for them to practice on. I'm not saying any names, but it is a legitimate question that you should ask any coach who's recruiting you. Even in Division I, can you please tell me more about your training facility? The college that I ran for, Lafayette, used to use a high school track nearby to practice for their Division I program. They only built their facility just a year or two before I got there. The track itself is pretty fast, but it doesn't have any bleachers at all, so fans can't even come to watch the meets hardly. And some track teams in D1 don't take planes to attend any of their competitions at all. At a school like mine, we ride buses and sometimes vans, sometimes driven by the coaches, in order to get wherever we had to go. You had better like your teammates, because you're going to be on the road with them, sometimes for a very long ride. And you could end up in a hotel room with only 2 beds and 3 to 4 people in it. And you don't even get free gear at every Division I school. Some programs will simply offer you a discount to buy your own gear. I guess that's a victory, depending on how you look at it. But above all else, D1 does not offer as much scholarship money as you think it does. This is not football or basketball. Track and field, even for the best schools in the country, is an equivalency sport. That means there are only 12.6 scholarships for the men's team and 18 scholarships in total for the women's team. That's fewer scholarships than the number of athletes on the roster. A program like the Arkansas Razorbacks dominates the SEC, and they have 55 men on their roster. It's simple math. They ain't all getting full scholarships. And keep in mind, that is a team that is fully funded. That is not the case for everyone else in D1. Some schools will only use a fraction of that scholarship allotment. I'm not making this up. Some of those track schools will only give out small partial scholarships to some of their athletes. It could be 10 to 20 men on a team with more than 40 athletes, and all the rest of the money comes from academics or financial aid. If you really want to know how good you have to be to get a full ride scholarship in Division I for track, the answer is this. You probably gotta be MileSplit's first team national elite list in more than one event. It may not get you a full ride from a top 10 national program, but it should get you considered by somebody in D1. In high school, Brandon Carnes ran 10:55 in the 100 and 21:37 in the 200 as a junior. That's first team national elite in both events. He was from the state of Florida, but the Gators didn't want him, and neither did the Seminoles. But he did get a D1 offer at the University of Northern Iowa. It snows a whole lot up there. But he did run fast when he got there and won a whole lot of conference championships. So I guess it all worked out for him and for them. So if you really want to go D1, please know that I've got your back. Because if you have the talent to pull it off, you should pursue it. But please know that Division I track and field is not exactly what it seems. My advice is that you consider all of your options, even if they're not in D1, because some athletes will likely have recruiting options that look just as good, both on the track and for your scholarship dollars beyond it. D1 track and field may be an option, and it might even be the most appealing one, but it is not always the best one. Choose wisely, because even if you do get there, do not be surprised when a bunch of non-D1 athletes show up to compete against you at your next track meet. I'm Coach Rob, and I'm always here to help you get recruited for college track and field. And if you want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe.